Good morning, world. Today's Monday, the 10th of March, and you are listening and watching the Daily Huddle. We stream live on YouTube, and we thrive on creating the space where you get a shot in the arm and a shot in the heart every morning. This is your Daily Huddle. My name is Sorel Queton. I have with me a phenomenal human being, Mr. Chris M. King. I want to tell you just a little bit about Chris, create the context question, and give your sense of why you should be on the edge of your seat right now. Right now, be on the edge of your seat. Mr. Chris King has a history of making seemingly impossible goals a reality. Now, dig this. Chris became an NCAA ice hockey player after learning to skate only 1 year before. He landed a job as at the Neuroscience Institute of a hospital with no clinical background. He declined a lucrative job to instead be broke and live out of his car to build a company. Now that takes guts. Today, that company thrives. As it turns out, there's a science to bending reality. Chris applies that to business teams and professional individuals. Dubbed the executive witch doctor, the human tuning fork, and even the irritated Buddha, and you'll see why in a bit. Chris is a facilitator, speaker, author. He expedites the journeys that leads to the discoveries and strategies for organizations and individuals to bend reality and quickly achieve the seemingly impossible. Call Chris when you have big dreams and little time. Chris is here in conversation with us today inside of this question. What is the one thing that changes the impossible to possible? Chris, it's such an honor to have you on the Daily Huddle. Buddy, welcome.
Thank you so much. So good to see you.
It's great to see you. You know, you divide your time now between the West Coast and the East Coast, and every time I get the chance to see you on the East Coast, it's a great deal. So next time you're around, brother, knock on the door, okay?
You got it. Absolutely.
So what's this deal about you being a reality bender?
Well, I'm sort of a systems hacker, right? Like everything is a system. The reality that you're experiencing, business, personal, everything. It's the end result of a system. And any system can be hacked if you understand how that system works. And so if you're not living in the reality that you want, all right, you just got to recode the system. I say, frequently, this work is not complicated. It's not easy, but it's not complicated.
So in that world that you create for yourself and the clients you serve, there are these two words, impossible, impossible. And if I'm hearing you correctly, it makes a difference how you define both. So let's start with impossible. What do you say is impossible?
Well, most people define impossible as that which cannot be done. And I don't look at it that way. I look at impossible as that which has not been done yet, because everything was impossible until it wasn't, right? Achieving flight for heavier than air aircraft, that was impossible until we figured it out. It was impossible to drive faster than 60 miles an hour, until it wasn't. I mean, people even thought that if you drove faster than 60 miles an hour, your face would peel off. Like that, that was the science at the time, right? So yeah, that really is it. It's like, look, it's only impossible based on what we know in this moment. And so when we start shifting around that, well, that's how the doors open.
So in that sense, Chris, when it comes to business and personal relationships, let's just stick to business for a moment.
Great.
Would you say to the clients you serve, or do you say to the clients you serve, that there's nothing you want for your business or your life that is impossible? It just hasn't been done yet. So
Mhm.
in that case, what are some quote unquote impossible things have you assisted your clients in creating for their businesses?
Mhm.
And how did you go about it?
Well, it's a function of science. And one of my teachers, Stephen Kotler, he's written a bunch of books. He wrote Bold Abundance with Peter Diamandis, Stealing Fire. There's a ton of books by Stephen, and what he says so eloquently is that, peak performance is nothing more than getting your psychology and your physiology working for you instead of against you. And so you're already wired to do seemingly impossible things. When we start, and science is scalable, right? Like personality, that's not scalable, but the science is scalable. And so working with the clients, like, there's, I'll give you a couple of examples. We have one business owner with a marketing company in Dallas called me up, and she wanted business performance improvement, right? Just, more success as she defined it at the time. But there was a lot going on in her personal life as well that was really jamming things up. And so you fast forward, she was in a really terrible marriage, so we got her divorced. We got the house in the divorce, and then we got the house refinanced, so she was better resourced there. We got her off of her anti-anxiety medication, off of her antidepressant medication. She dropped 45 pounds. We more than doubled her business, and we did all of this in 13 months. I think she's just living in an alternate universe now. I was
Mm.
working with a computer distributor. This was many, many years ago, but they wanted to create a new successful product category. They wanted six-figure sales, incremental sales monthly inside of 6 months. And the trick was they had no new product. They had no market development funds, and my only resources were four people out of 600 on the sales floor. And so it was like, all right, I got my resources, I got my timeline, I got my goal. Now get out of my way. Let's cook this meal. And we did it. We were pulling about 120 to 150 every month inside of 6 months.
So
So
now,
and now I'll tell you just on it quite candidly, that was a little bit of a smoke and mirrors job, but but we did achieve the goal of getting those six-figure incremental sales.
now, without divulging everything or divulging everything, you say
Give it
there's a
away.
you say there's a science to this,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Can you give us a hint of the science?
I will
Now,
tell
when
you
you
the
say
first.
I hear method that can be used by anyone and produced at any time, that predictable set of results.
I will tell you the first step in the process, and that is you have to believe it is doable. There's a story about it's what we now know is the Bannister principle, and a lot of people know this story. He's the first guy that ever ran a mile in under 4 minutes, and people were chasing this goal for decades, like all through the early to mid 1900s. Humans wanted to see a human run a mile in under 4 minutes, and the doctors and scientists said you can't do it. It's not possible. It'll kill you if you pull it off. In May of 1954, Roger Bannister pulled it off at just under 4 minutes. Now, after decades of people trying to do this, his record lasted a whopping 46 days because right in that moment, as soon as he crossed the finish line, collective consciousness changed. Everybody knew it was possible. And so just through the lens of neuroscience and psychology and energy fields, humans create, validate, and recreate the reality of their understanding, belief, or expectation. And so if you believe it to be a certain way, you're going to make it that way. And so you have to be willing to be wrong. Say, okay, I know this is doable. How? That physiologically changes the way the brain works. And this is how you access the correct parts of the brains that are going to open up the creative centers where you can start coming up with ways to make that happen. But you got to be willing to be wrong, and you got to buy in.
So that leads me to a conclusion that may be completely wrong. Anything is possible.
I
Now,
would say start there, right?
uh,
I would say start there. Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
well, can a
anything is
human being
possible.
fly without apparatus or something? It's like, well, I don't know how that would be possible, but you do have to start with with the fantastic and seemingly ridiculous. If you start with what you think is possible, you're probably going to leave something on the table. I got a phone call actually from I got a referral from a guy in Boca who connected me with a with an organization in New York, and they said that they want to double their business in the next 5 years. And I was listening to the architecture of how they're going to do this and like how they've structured it, and I thought to myself, this is totally doable, which means we should be able to do this in about 2 years. Like they're planning double the business in 5 years, deal with the KPIs and the market trends and all those things. I'm like, nah, if we can certainly do it in 5, we can probably do it in 2, maybe 3, but we can do it in way less than 5 for sure.
Yeah. Now, when you face a problem like that and you go, oh, that's completely doable, you walking in as the witch doctor and you get the trick, you go, oh, I believe this. Do you struggle at times to get the people you're working with to generate the belief, given that that's such an essential component of making the science work? And if
Generally,
that's the case,
no. I would say maybe it's been a while since I've had this problem. There are certain industries that I don't play in very much because the way the industry is structured, it is sort of diametrically opposed to doing this. Like the law, for example. The law is the law, and it's a very slow mover in terms of how the industry is. It sort of is what it is, and so I don't do a lot with legal. Um, but pretty much anywhere else, then yeah, they're usually excited about whatever the thing is, whether it's doubling the business or launching the new widget or coming up with a new initiative. They're very excited about it, and so that's essential. It's definitely good to have people that
yeah,
are highlighting where the holes in the theories are, but they can't be actively, against it. That
yeah.
creates too much friction.
So what you're pointing to as belief is being for the accomplishment of a certain thing,
Hmm.
as opposed to belief in the sense of like, I believe in God, something like that.
Yeah, the naysayers are welcome to shoot holes in the strategy or the theories. They can't shoot holes in the goal. Like that's,
I got
they
that.
can't say it's not probably, here's all the reasons why it can't happen. It's like that's not going to help us. We need to start thinking about how can it happen? What if it is possible? How might that be true? Right? That
Yeah.
just changes the way the brain works.
So literally, you engage your clients and you yourself engage in that inquiry.
Hmm.
What if it's possible?
Yeah.
And then you keep going and taking the next action that's logical and feasible in that moment.
Yeah, it's even just getting somebody. I seem to have a way of understanding how to get somebody processing in the way that I need them to. Like this organization in New York, they said they want to double the business in 5 years. And so I just said, what happens if we do it in 2?
Hmm.
Like notice I didn't even talk about, I didn't say we can do it in 2. It's too like maybe too ridiculous for somebody in the room to be like, "Oh, no way." So it's like I'm just going to ask a different question. So if we did it in 2, what would that do for you? It's a different question.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've looked at the word impossible.
Hmm.
Equally misused, I think, is the word possible in the question, right? So
Hmm.
changing the impossible to possible, that presupposes that they're different. How do you define possible?
Well, I can be a little dismissive in my psychology, and so the first thing that came to mind when you said possible, I was like, duh. Like,
That's like everything, right?
like, well, yeah, of course. But this is why I don't really like in my organization, we don't deal with the standard, like, the coaches, the consultants. Like, I don't deal with the really broken teams, the culture problems, the narcissist CEO, the petty tyrants, the infighting. I don't do dumpster fire. I'm too old for that stuff. Just
So in your practice, given that you don't do dumpster fire, you really seek out people who are growth oriented,
Hmm.
have an impossible goal,
Hmm.
have little time, believe it, they can make it happen, and they're looking for someone like you to help them champion that on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
So we say in that question, what is the one thing that changes the impossible to possible? We may have hinted on it already, but I'd love for you to peel that apart for us. What's the one thing?
Yeah, the one thing is that belief is this the second you really buy in and instead of saying I can't because, right? What is it? Was it Henry Ford, right? You know, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So belief. And
Yeah, and look, I just have too much personal experience with this. You know, I've pulled off things in my personal life that I had no business being able to achieve. And people ask me, "What's your secret weapon?" I said, "I was dumb enough to think I could do it." Like I joke about this today, but when I was a kid, I grew up in the 70s, right? And so we watched Looney Tunes with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and all that. And I remember an old Daffy Duck cartoon where he was riding an invisible bicycle around a boxing ring. And he's giggling his head off and he says, "I'm so crazy, I don't know this isn't possible." I built a company on a Daffy Duck quote.
I am so crazy. I don't know that this is possible.
I don't know this isn't possible. Like
Now,
I was, people ask me, "How'd you do it? How'd you do the hockey thing? How'd you do the radio thing? How'd you get the neuro gig?" I was dumb enough. I was too stupid to know I couldn't.
tell us a little bit about the journey from living out of your car to building this company. You know,
Yeah,
people,
that was a new.
Chris, yeah, man. Chris says it. If I believe and I keep taking actions in the right direction, I'm good. But I imagine the journey itself could have been challenging in your life.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. There were days I didn't eat, I
Give
mean, I
us
just
a little
didn't.
bit about that.
Well, I found myself I in about a week and a half time frame, I lost my job, my apartment, and my girlfriend. And I reached out to, the first thing I thought was, crap, I got to get a job, right? And I reached out to this guy, he's a commercial real estate broker. And because I remember a few months back, we'd met and he said, "Man, I wish you worked for me." And so apparently he liked me. And so I called him up and I said, "Remember when you said you wish I worked for you?" He brought me in, we sat down, we talked, and he kind of gave me an idea of what I was looking at. And I forecasted what happens if I do this, right? Well, I'm gonna work my ass off. I'm gonna make a good income. I'm gonna build a career over the next couple of years, and then what? Like then I'll have a lifestyle that requires that job to support it, and I'm trapped again. And I've already done this. I've done the trap thing, just the soul sucking job or whatever. Now, granted, it wasn't that bad. He was a good guy. Commercial real estate's cool. It just I knew it wasn't my thing. And in that moment, I kind of had this awareness that, everybody'd been telling me that I should do something in the under the umbrella of coaching and consulting because anytime I had done something for somebody, they said, you're much better at this. And so I thought, well, let's see what I can do. I had a strong network, I had a sport coat, and I had a beat up sedan. So I was like, all right, well, what can I cook with these ingredients? But it was not fun. Look, it was not easy. It was very stressful. It was for some people that would just be too stressful, just living in threat response like that. I had the benefit, I guess I should say, that it was just me, right? I didn't have a family to support. I didn't have, so it was a little easier. I was the only one that was going to die if I failed. But beyond that, yeah, and it took a good 2.5, 3 years to really get the engine running. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of
No,
how that went.
the science works and it's not an overnight thing. So
Yeah.
for our listeners, I love the three phrases you use, your clients use to describe you. The executive witch doctor.
Yeah.
Now, you know, mind you, I love telling people, see, don't try this at home. but we are going to give them a little something to try at home. So if someone wanted to be their own witch doctor
Hmm.
in the way you are for them, what would you say is the practice that there?
This is either going to sound super scientific or super woo. So let's see here. I would say the first thing is you got to match the frequency. Your energy, your energetic frequency needs to match the frequency of the thing you want. And the way to start doing that is visualization is great. You know, we talk about visualization. That's a very powerful tool that we use. I'll tell you in my experience, there's like this triangulation of there's my commitment to do something, right? Like if I have a vision and there's my commitment to achieving that vision. Commitment for me, it's very masculine in its orientation. It's very heady, very choice driven. I'm doing this, I'm on it. It kind of has almost an aggressive sort of feel for me. On the other side of that coin, there's my devotion to something. And that feels very like a feminine energy where it's just that thing that is so beautiful and I'll just fall on my knees and cry because I am in reverence of it. And in my experience, when I connect, when I marry my commitment to my devotion and I attach it to that vision, I don't know how you fail. I really don't.
Mm. And and when you say you don't know how to fail, is it that you don't even have in your mind a notion that you could fail, or that there is that notion in your mind and you have a way of uh, confronting it?
It really is one of those succeed or die things. It's all very Gene Kranz, failure is not an option. You know, I actually met Gene once. But but when you have that level of intensity, like when I went after my radio career, when I decided to build this company, there are a small handful of things in my life that I was either going to have it or or I was going to die trying. And I literally like I had nothing to lose. When I started this company, I was the most dangerous man in the world. I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And so, you know, even I think we're a very obsessive society around like saving lives kind of thing. And I'm like, saving a life is like having a favorite shirt that you never wear. It's like, what are you saving it for? Right? Like life is about meaning, not about longevity. I mean, sure, I want a long life. I want it to be meaningful though, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that's, you know, I was having a hard time figuring out what the meaning was around the kind of the normal stuff. And so I was like, no, this is how I knew this is how I could make an impact in the world, you know, as me. And ultimately I figured out what this Chris King thing is and does, and then I figured out how to monetize it. And so I get paid to be me, which is about the best job I can possibly imagine.
Thank you for doing that. I want to ask you one last thing, but before we do that, I'd love to give Eli, Virtue, Maria, or Chase the opportunity to get a little bit piece of you by asking you a question or sharing one of the insights they got from this conversation. So, anyone who wants to chime in, please open your microphone and go for it. And if not,
I
Chris,
say I
Can you
tend to
hear
scare
me?
people away, so
Chase, go for it.
Grand Rising. Thank you, Chris. This is some great information. It's a pleasure to have you here.
thank you.
Um, I sent you a quick question about, I just wanted you to repeat some of those books you said before, but you can just text that to me. My question that I have for you is, you know, I see a lot of myself in you. I really enjoyed this conversation a lot. You said so many things that are so close to my own cranium, which I love. Um, at this point in your journey, what is for you your most challenging thing about how you create this world around you? Like, what are you challenged with at this particular moment? The thing you're, God, I got to get better at that.
That's a great question. What do I need to get better at? I mean, the short answer is everything, right? The something that I tell, what we call the baby coaches, right? People just launching a coaching or consulting practice. In fact, I just had lunch with a guy, yesterday, and in his 20s, and like, I really want to do this kind of thing. And I said, well, the best thing you can do for yourself is be your first client. Like,
Mm.
if you're not living the message, you're not a particularly good messenger. And so I've really got to work through my stuff. And look, I didn't come out of a box this way, Chase. Like I was a mess most of my life, and I'm still working through stuff. I'm 5+ decades in now. Um so it does come at a price. I had to decode and recode all of this. And it's here, here's the sad part, and my clients learn this, maybe 3 or 4 months in. There's no there. Like, you're never done. This is not a destination at which to arrive. This is a manner in which to travel. And so this work never ends.
Right. I agree.
So the author is Kotler, Kotler. Um,
Kotler.
Ler, yeah, Stephen
Ler.
Kotler. He wrote The Rise of Superman. He wrote just a ton of books. I've met Stephen a couple of times. I even had a drink with him. He's like my spirit animal. I love that guy.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Chase, thank you for the question. You said that Chris reminds you of yourself, and as he was speaking, brother, I was thinking the same thing. The kind of space where you enter life and you live life, not for any reason other than being alive and living life. It leaves you free. It leaves you in a space where you can infect others with that kind of freedom.
In fact, affect, either way. I'll
I
tell you what,
love
though,
it.
I think there's, and maybe this is partially another answer to Chase's question, is that, seeking the places of inspiration, the things that really connect for me. Like, I'll give you a great example of what I'm talking about, the whole commitment, devotion, vision thing. I see that Ellie Eisenberg is on this call, and Ellie and I have known each other for years, and he's just been my partner in crime in a networking group that we're in. I love this man, and he has been with his wife Sandy since I was, I think, about 2 or 3 years old. So like 50 years he's been with her, and talk about connecting marrying your commitment to your devotion and attaching it to a vision, right? It was his commitment to his wife, Sandy, his devotion to her, and the vision for the life together. And they have a beautiful family, kids, grandkids, great grandkids now. I mean, it's truly inspirational.
Yeah, well, that's great, Chris, but my wife thinks I'm married to you.
I do talk to this man just about every day. So there's some truth to that. In the Eisenberg household, I think they just refer to me as his boyfriend, which is really strange.
I will tell you that there was a time about 4 years ago when I was kind of stuck in my business. And like Chris said, he and I talk every day. He said, "Why don't you sit down with me and we'll just, we'll do we'll do a session." And he worked with me. Actually, we ended up doing like 3 sessions, and he taught me his flight school and which I don't know if he wants to get into here, but um, I would say that the year following, when Chris and I had our sessions together, my revenues, my business grew 60%, 60% year over year. I didn't continue to grow 60% year over year, but it had that big bump, and it made a difference. And the Chris and I've seen Chris do things that have just blown me away, where he'll have a conversation with somebody. It's like he can read the words that are imprinted on a person's soul. And I'm thinking about, for example, the time when you and I had with Vera, and I was just, I just sat and watched, and I was in awe of this man. He has unbelievable insight. He does have the ability to hack your systems and see through all of the BS. And there isn't a soul I can think of who wouldn't benefit from spending time with Chris and drinking from his fountain of wisdom. He's an amazing guy.
Ellie, thank you for creating that. I want to ask you a question. When Chris shows up, there is the possibility for someone in a business to shift in a way that leaves them growing 60%. I'd love to hear what shifted for you personally and what shifted in your business.
What shifted for me personally was gaining just new insight as to what was important and what was not important. I was, as many people do in business, trying to do everything all the time for everyone, and not deciphering, what is. I'll use Chris's flight school example. What energy was lift versus drag versus and focusing my energy on those things that truly had a return, a positive return, and stepping away from the things that I thought were important but really weren't. They were just eating up my time and dragging me down. We tend to get into let's call them habits or patterns, and sometimes you need someone like Chris to point it out to you and say, look, what you're doing over there, you may think that you have to do it, but you don't. It's not working. It's not working for your benefit, and it probably isn't even working for the benefit of the person you think you're helping. Yeah. And so, and that's I could spend a lot more time, but I mean that's the essence of it right there.
Yeah, I got it, Ellie. I got it. And it's the kind of shift that leaves you with clarity and the ability to focus and be in action in a way that delivers return, not because you learned something new, but because you actually became someone new. So, Chris, thank you for doing that work.
My pleasure. Then thank you, Ellie. That's very, very kind of you. Because I can be very dismissive about my industry. And I've said this many times, any idiot can teach you time management skills. Like, I'm not particularly interested in efficiency or productivity. And in the case of Ellie, it was what I really focus on is leverage, an input to output ratio. How do I get a whole lot more using a whole lot less? And the first step was challenging what he thought he had to do. It's like, well, I got to go here and I got to go there. And I was like, but do you? And just thinking, so, well, wait a minute, maybe I don't. Well, great. Now you got 3 hours back in your day. So grow your business 60% and using fewer resources to do it, like that's leverage. That's what has an impact.
Yeah. So one last thing, Chris. You say that you're dubbed the irritated Buddha.
My branding person, I love her so much.
Why don't you close with that piece?
Yeah. She's Heather, she's, God love her. I mean, she's crazy and she's brilliant. She's one of those creatives, right? She's a true creative, and she's one of the few true branding people that I know. And when we first met and we had the conversations around, doing the rebrand, she said, you're like this, I don't know, you're like this irritated Buddha. I just thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. Because it's like, yeah, I'm all about peace and love, and I say F you way too much, But that's I guess, let me tie that back in, as I think about it in this moment. That really is the core of the business. And actually our flagship program Moonshot was born out of that, because at first it kind of had this frequency of disruption. And then I realized there was like a sub frequency that was just straight defiant. Like, tell me what can't be done. I dare you, right? It was like, oh, can't do that? Hold my beer. Watch this, And that's kind of where it really all came from. But
so
that was Heather's doing.
Through a program like Moonshot, I guess your clients and businesses get to have teams of quote unquote irritated Buddhas.
Yeah.
You know, a mixture of wisdom, defiance, and go getting it.
Yeah, yeah, we're right at the intersection of innovation and speed. Lawyers will tell you that time kills deals, and I will tell you that success loves speed. And it's like it's a lot easier to steer a car that's going 60 than it is one that's not moving or going 2, right? And so if you can get that kind of speed, if you can get that kind of leverage moving, like everything changes. But that's what Moonshot was built for. It's you know, people say it sounds kind of like therapy. I said it's nothing like therapy because I don't really care about your story or your history. I don't really care how you got to where you are. I care about where we're going. Like, where are you on the map right now, and how am I going to get you to where you want me to take you? That's really so. We don't spend a lot of time with story. It's that's just not gonna. It's just gonna slow us down too much.
Awesome, Chris. Well, brother, I want you to know that the Daily Huddle stands for your success.
Oh.
I do. I stand for the success of your clients. I'm immensely grateful that you'd come and spend time with us this morning. Folks, you got to know he got up at 4:30 this morning, got ready. He's here at 5 a.m. Chris is on the West Coast right now. So, Chris, thank you for moving everything you had to move.
No, it's my pleasure. Getting me to talk about this stuff is easy. Getting me to shut up is kind of a challenge. But thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share.
We're never going to ask you to shut up.
Getting him to shut up is not kind of a challenge.
Well, folks, we're 7 minutes after the bottom of the half hour. We're going to end the show right now. This is your Daily Huddle. We're here every day, Monday through Friday. Tomorrow, you'll have the pleasure of having Christy Daly, who will host the Daily Huddle. So tune in. And if you can't tune in live, join us on YouTube at the Daily Huddle. Here are our 8 tenets. My dear friend Patty Dabrowski says, if you want to live past your 80s and you want to stay a renegade throughout your entire life, this is what you do. You love hard, love the people you love to hate, love yourself. You laugh out loud. Man, if you can't laugh out loud, get somebody to tickle you or get somebody to tell you a dad joke. For God's sake, life is not that significant. Live it and laugh. Stress less, eat. We say mostly plant-based, but I had a great hamburger yesterday. So you don't have to be so strict about it, but you do have to be careful about what you put into your body. So eat well, rest well, exercise, and give of your life, give of yourself. There's nothing here that you have that you really have or that's really yours. Might as well give it away. Last but not least, if you think what you're thinking is true, think yourself. Check your assumptions and give it up and live it up. This is your Daily Huddle. I love you. Giovanni, who is my business partner and co-founder of the Daily Huddle, loves you more. Make it a phenomenal day.